Don't move. Good luck. You already know. You're listening to the Forfeit Fatherhood Podcast. We're having conversations with dope dads covering the four pillars of fatherhood. We call it the Fit Fatherhood Formula. That's right. These dads are setting the pace in business and fatherhood. This show isn't only about the outside success. We're getting down to who you are. Gentlemen, it's time to get fit. And now, let's get into the show.
Back to the Forfeit Fatherhood Podcast, a podcast for fathers by fathers, where we talk about the four pillars of fatherhood, which are faith, family, finance, and fitness. And again, guys, I was able to grab another great guest. I know you guys love when I'm talking to you, but when you get an opportunity to have a guest in, we get the opportunity to hear the experiences of another father and get his viewpoint. It's always really cool. And that's kind of why this whole thing started, right? So I'm excited to have today Anthony Delaney. Anthony, I am super stoked to hear what you got going on, brother. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm super stoked to be here. I tell you, just even the beginning conversation, I'm getting pumped up, and it's the evening hour for me. So that's pretty awesome.
Nice. Yeah, man. Look, I love talking fatherhood. I say this all the time. Like, I see fatherhood and everything. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, this is kind of just how my mind works. Is I'm always seeing like metaphors or similes. Like, I'm always comparing things all the time. And so when I see stuff happening, I'm like, oh man, that really resonates with fatherhood. Like, and so it's like some people say is fatherhood is my jam. It is my purpose, my children specifically, but I feel like I'm drawn to fatherhood and I can't get away from it. So anytime I get an opportunity to have a conversation with another dad, I'm all in.
Sounds perfect. Yeah. It's really interesting that you actually gave that dynamic because my background is I've been a financial planner for 20 years, but it's been just in the past 5 years that I've really kind of had a dream come to life, I guess you could say. And that dream was I started writing books, and I wrote 2 adult self-help books, but I've also written 5 children's picture books. And each one of them teaches a basic financial lesson, but each of the stories is based off of a life experience. It's kind of you can only really tell a story if you know kind of to some extent what that character is feeling or what they're going through. You've seen your kids go through, whatever it might be. So that's all we're doing as dads. We're just kind of trying to pass on the knowledge to the next generation and to help those other dads out there who are yet to go through that fun experience that we may have done right or maybe not have done right. So
Right. Yeah. And in those instances when we maybe didn't do it right, that's an opportunity for another dad to maybe avoid that instance, right? Or to be able to kind of take an easier route over that hurdle. Not to say that it won't still be a hurdle, right? Because some of these things you don't avoid, right? They just are what they are. But at least having the understanding that it's coming, right? It's not blindsiding you is the cool part.
I mean, as they've often said, most of the things we learn are through failure. Right? When
Yeah.
you success, you're not really going to remember the moment, but if it's a learning experience, right? And we as dads learn, grandparents learn, kids they're learning every moment, and sometimes we want to come in and save them, but on the same end, we also know that we kind of have to let them fail sometimes just to know what that experience feels like, so that it sticks a little bit better for them.
Yeah. Sometimes failure closes the gap, right? That learning gap where you know something is what you're supposed to do, but you're over here. And sometimes that failure closes that gap really fast. Like touching a hot stove. You learn a very valuable lesson really quickly.
Yeah, even though mom or dad's in the background just ready to swoop in, they might just let you get close enough to get a sense of, yeah, don't do it again, right?
Yeah, it teaches you in a way that words can't, right? That pain forever. As a matter of fact, I was in the sauna at the gym the other day, and they didn't have it covered. Normally they have it like, covered. There's like this wooden thing around it, and there's like a metal grate, and they keep it covered. But I guess they were working on it, so it wasn't covered, and I'm just not paying attention. And it's a gym I don't typically go to. So the inside the sauna is dark. You got to find the light switch inside of it. So I'm feeling around for the light switch, and I hit the actual heated part of the sauna. So I got this burn on my arm right now. And I'm like, dang, I haven't been burned in a really long time. Like, this sucks.
Yeah, it's probably still stinging, isn't it? Every time you move it
Yeah.
up and back, it's like, oh gosh, it's still there.
Yeah. I'm learning the lesson every day, right? It's still teaching me. Can't be
Well,
feeling
at least
around
the
in the dark
parent,
room.
put something on there to help it heal a little bit faster, right?
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk. You kind of mentioned it, or not kind of mentioned, you mentioned it. You've written some books. You've written 2 adult books and 5 books for children. Let's start with the adult books. They're self-help books. Let's talk about those. What's going on with those books?
Sure. So the gist of it is, like I said, I came into the financial services industry right out of college.
Okay.
For dads our age, you probably remember monsterjobs.com. I don't know if that even still
Yeah.
exists, but that's where my resume was, and they found me. And
Okay.
I just found that when I came into the industry, I loved it. I found out I had a passion for helping families, and in the years following, I ended up getting married, buying a house, having 2 children, now a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and just kind of going through all those stages of life. And I realized just how complex family life can be. And it's really complex, but it's exciting. And there's just so many different pieces to the puzzle. So I found it was really enjoyable. Um, Going back to the book side of things, about 5 years ago, I actually experienced a pretty dramatic, sad event, unfortunately. I had a cousin who was actually really famous in the fitness world. His name was Greg Klitt, Klitt.
Yeah.
And Greg was on the cover of about 250 fitness magazines. He was pretty well known across the board, and he unfortunately passed away unexpectedly back in 2015. And Greg and I grew up together. He was like an older brother to me. So before vlogging was even a thing, he actually had a website where members would email in questions on life and fitness, and he would just answer those questions. And kind of a way for me to remember him, I started watching those videos, and I realized that a lot of his philosophies as they related to fitness could also apply to the world of finance. So I said, what can I do to kind of give back, give a testimonial to my cousin, and also share my knowledge with young families and those people trying to get started? I said, why don't I write a book? And one of Greg's videos was actually on the concept of death, oddly enough, and the idea of owning the dash. And that's basically all the books are based on that title, that brand. Owning the dash refers to kind of on your tombstone between your birth and your death dates. You've got that dash in between, and the thought process is taking ownership of your life. We only have so much time on this earth. How are we making use of it as individuals, as parents, as employees, as whatever we are? Just are we making the best of our time? And it just really hit me hard. That book came to life back in 2019, and after it came out, a lot of people found it very helpful. But they said, "Tony, this was really written for young families. What about us looking to make maybe the transition into retirement? How about for the older crowd?" And so when COVID hit, I decided I was going to take on that challenge, and I wrote a second self-help book, which was called The first book was called Owning the Dash: Applying the Mindset of a Fitness Master to the Art of Family Financial Planning. You could tell I had no idea, and I was writing a title that was way too long. Right? It was more about the world than it was about so Owning the Dash is the title, but the second book was called The No Regrets Retirement Roadmap, and that was all about the transition into retirement. And it, I loved writing it. There was a lot of passion behind it, but one of the real big positives that came from it is the Wall Street Journal actually recognized it as one of the best books of 2022 for aging and retirement. So that let me know that, hey, this advice isn't terrible that I'm giving. But while I was writing the books, my, at the time, 12-year-old daughter, 11, 12-year-old daughter, she's one of those kids that just doesn't sleep at night. She just, as soon as everybody goes to bed, she's wired and ready to go. So I'd be writing during the evening hours, and all of a sudden I'd look over and I'd hear, "Hi, Daddy." And she'd be standing just typing away in my office, and we'd actually start writing next to each other. And we came up with the idea of writing a children's picture book that taught a financial lesson. And that became Dash and Nikki and the Jelly Bean Game. And are you familiar at all with the marshmallow study? You ever heard of that study before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So just for like the listeners who may not have heard about it, it's basically where they put kids in a room and they said, "I'll give you a marshmallow. I'm going to leave the room, and in a minute, if I come back and the marshmallow's still there, I'll give you another marshmallow." So it's kind of how do kids respond when nobody's watching and they have temptation put in front of them. And so with the book that we created, it was basically a brother and sister who met with exactly like my kids, and behaved very similar to them. Basically, they wake up one morning and there's a note waiting for them, and the note invites them to play in the jelly bean game. They come down to the kitchen table, and there's a giant jar of jelly beans and 2 plates that each have 10 jelly beans on them. And the note says that for every hour you can resist, you get 5 more. And one of the siblings, the older brother, he likes to win, so he's all about there's no way of touching these things. Whereas the younger sister in this case is a little bit more impulsive. After about a minute, it's like, you know what, I'm going to down these jelly beans. And what we see later in the book is just how it feels watching the one sibling's pile build up, whereas her plate stays empty. And it teaches about delayed gratification and things of that nature. But the brother ends up helping the sister out at the end. There's a little twist that happens in the story with compassion and patience. And he basically offers, says, I'll give you 10 jelly beans if you'll promise to give me 12 back at the end. And so in the end, they both win. And I think this kind of story behind it is teaching kids that, hey, if you do, exercise some patience, look at what it can grow into. And if somebody else is struggling, we can help them out. So that's basically the first story. And then that received a lot of great success, which was nice. And so more stories came to follow, just involving different financial lessons that I've come across over the years.
I like that, man. So you covered the whole spectrum. You got the kids learning about finances and getting some financial literacy. You got new or young families or young couples learning about it. And then when we get a little older, get a little longer in the tooth, teaching us how to retire. That's awesome, man. So I definitely now I've got to own those books so that I can own the Dash. So so the children's books, what age are you like targeting? What's the age range there?
So the books are actually they all rhyme and they read kind of like a Dr. Seuss book. So it's the kind of book that you would find for elementary school age kids. And that the idea would be something to kind of bring families together. So parents will be reading these to the kids, and there's a little cheat in the way. Not only is the kid learning something, but the parent might be thinking, which am I? Am I the impulsive, or am I am I stated and doing? What lessons am I teaching my kids?
Right.
So it's written for that generation. It's also really made for teachers to be able to kind of read in front of a classroom, and just have something where everybody can be involved.
Yeah, I like that. I like the rhyming aspect of it because look, I still enjoy a good Dr. Seuss book. Don't get me like I'm not gonna act like I haven't learned some lessons in my adult life from good old Doc Seuss. Reading them back to my kids, like, oh man, Dr. Seuss was insightful, man. Like so I think that's really cool, and I think that's a really good age to start them with, starting to kind of understand money a little bit more, because they definitely want to spend it. They definitely want to buy stuff and get stuff. So having an understanding, and I talk about it with my daughters, is like, yes, we can get this now. Like we have the money to get it now, but let's just, like you talk about delayed gratification. What if we waited? What if we didn't get it right now? Let's be sure we really want it. And then, if we come back and we really want it, then we can get it. But if you hold off, right, you might be able to get 2 of them. Right, you let your little money stack up a little bit. You might be able to get 2. Those are great lessons, man. That's really, really cool. So you got 2 kids. How old are they again?
Now, about to be 15. My older daughter, and my son is 12, and he's about as tall as I am, and he's a gymnast, so he can. He's doing stuff I'll never do in my lifetime, and it's just I can remember when I was a kid. I can remember the moment I discovered I'm stronger than my dad. And I just know that moment's coming for him, and I'm doing everything I can to prevent it from happening. But he sort of is in charge, I think. But Yeah, it's scary that they just grow up real fast in those preteen years.
Yeah,
So
man. Yeah. My oldest is 11, and she is itching to be a teenager. Like, she is like tooth and like every day there's some teenage thing that she wants to do, or like she wants to watch all the like teenage TV shows now. She's watching Mean Girls. She wanted to watch Mean Girls the other day. I think she's watching like High School Musical. I'm like, bro, you're middle school. You just got to middle school. Let's watch Middle School Musical, whatever that is. Like, if you want to watch a cartoon or something, like, she is not feeling it. So I'm like, as she gets older, I'm very, very curious how this teenage thing is gonna play out, because she's been, I would say, that she's probably like right outside the door. But, but
I just know
she's
that
because
feeling every day. Like looking over the corner, like, oh please, please.
because I meant to talk to her about it on the way to practice. But because she's got a younger sister, she's kind of played down, right? She still plays with her little sister, and they play dolls and do all those kind of things. But I know the teenage stuff is coming, right? I can see it. And even in the way she's starting to kind of change how she dresses, she doesn't want the little kitty shirts anymore. She kind of wants to dress a little differently. And so I'm preparing myself for that. I don't know that I'm ready, but I'm preparing myself for that transition to my little girl being a teenager. And when she starts to like want to spend more time with her friends or do that kind of stuff, I'm like, oh, it's coming. It's coming. So I got to hold on to my baby while I can, you know?
I was going to say that's why we have fatherhood support groups, right? Because we all know just the trials of we want to protect them, but on the same end, especially for our daughters, it's kind of like if you're too overprotective, then when they're out of the nest, all of a sudden they don't know how to be independent, and it's just that
Yeah.
very difficult balance of trying to be a loving, doting dad, and on the same end realize that hey, you can't wear this, but I know I've got to kind of give a little bit. There's a balance between the two, right?
Yeah. Walking that fine line of letting them grow up and become who they're gonna be, and then like still keeping your little girl your little girl. And I'm
She's
walking that
always going to
line
be your
right
little
now.
girl, even if she's 30. She's going to still be your little girl, right?
Right. Yes, it's for sure. In my mind, she is. So I hope she feels the same way. um, so one of the four pillars is finance, and obviously you're in the finance space, and I want to, we talked about the books, and for fathers who are, and I'm asking this part so I can ask the next part, and I'm asking for a friend, right? For fathers who are just getting started and just getting their family going, you've got a whole book about it, but if there were a couple things that you would suggest to them, not advice, but just things for them to think about as they get their family started financially, what would those things maybe be?
Sure. So what I would say is that uh, the most difficult thing I've seen, especially for young individuals and young couples, is that when we were growing up, pre-internet age, I guess you could say, the information you had to search for it, but now it's abundant and it's everywhere. And you would think that hey, that's a really good thing, but in a way, it's like an information overload, and you don't know what's good, you don't know what's bad. It's just kind of this big old mess of information that's out there. And what I've often found happen is that when you start kind of listening to all the stuff that is out there, um, it, there's this sense of guilt that builds up. This kind of I'm
Mm,
supposed to be at this level, or I'm supposed to be this, or I'm supposed to be that. And in fact, my most recent kids book really dove into this because I think it's probably the biggest issue that causes young individuals to suffer, or across the board, and that's kind of fear of judgment. Um, if all this stuff was easy, then everybody would know how to do it. And the reality is that this stuff isn't easy. There's a reason that financial planners even exist.
hmm
And if you can get over the fear of judgment and realize that, hey, I'm on my own journey. This is my own dash, as an example. However my friends are doing or whatever the job scenario is, it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to do for myself or for my family, for my kids is good. And yeah, there are probably some mistakes I made, but if I'm seeking help, um, the person who is helping me should never judge me. And as long as we kind of can go into that mindset of, I'm going here, we always judge ourselves. We are the worst critics of ourselves.
Yeah.
But if we can, for those younger individuals to say kind of, hey, there's it's a hopelessness, unfortunately, too. Just the world seems crazier and crazier, and the news is in our face all the time. Um, I mean, just as a simple example, a lot of young individuals are looking at like the prices of houses right now and interest rates and things of that nature, and thinking this is insane.
Yeah.
Back in the 1980s, mortgages were as high as 14%, and that just sounds absolutely crazy to think about. But it's we can get through. If there's one thing that is pretty unique about humans, we're very resilient individuals. So I would say that if there's about an important to you to get started, it's commit to moving forward. In other words, if you say you're going to create a budget, create the budget. If you say you're going to discuss your finances, do it. One thing that always gets overlooked, and I think is probably one of the most critical things for young families, is once you do start having kids, address those what if scenarios. When you're young and healthy, it's cheap and easy. But things that you don't even want to think about, like getting life insurance when you're young, creating a will, creating, and then it's your estate documents. It's all the boring stuff. But if you get that stuff out of the way and from the get-go, then you really have a solid foundation. And rather than, I found that a lot of individuals really just want to kind of learn how to invest. And even when they want to teach their kids how to invest, and there's so many steps before learning how to invest that are just like beyond critical. Like, teach your kids how to, a family budget works before they learn how to trade a stock, because that's going to be far more valuable to them than, getting a little bit better rate of return on their investment. So that's probably a lot more of an answer than you wanted for a simple question. But
No. I think you gave a really good answer to the question, and for guys that are just getting their family started, I think starting to do something financial with your finances. So at least, like you said, having the conversations, starting to plan for the big what ifs. Like those are things that I think when we're young, we feel we're immortal, right? Like you're gonna live forever. We don't have to worry about this. We can save money on this, and we don't have to do it now. We'll do it later. But those are things that, as fathers and leaders, providers and protectors, and all the things that we want to be, if something were to happen to us and we don't have those things in place, then we're definitely not filling those roles anymore, right? So that I agree. Obviously planning is the idea, right? And starting to plan early is always going to kind of pay off a little bit more over the long run, right? Because like you said, when you're young and healthy, things are going to be cheaper to do, right? Like we're talking about life insurance and things like that. As you get older and start getting banged up and you start getting little dings and things start going on, it gets a little bit more expensive, and you typically have more expenses as you get older, right? There are other things that are coming into play that over the course of your life, and so now adding that on, even if it is cheaper, it's still an extra expense that you have to add, which you probably didn't have to worry about when you were younger. So definitely, I agree with you, man. Guys getting started soon, getting started early. Now, here's the question that I'm asking for a friend, and that was a lead in. I just turned 40 last year, turned 41 in March. I told my wife this. When I turned 40 for the first time in all of my 40 years, I wasn't thinking about 40. I started thinking about 60. Right? Like usually, I'm 28, 29. I'm like, whatever, this is the year, like 20, 30, 31 is my year. And then 32 was my year. When I turned 40, I was like, man, what is 60 going to be like? I started thinking 20 years ahead. Like I want to make sure like, when I'm 60, I don't want to be working anymore. That's one thing I've said for a long time is like, 60, maybe I could work, but maybe not. I don't think I want to be working when I'm 60. But looking 20 years ahead and thinking about retirement and starting to have those conversations, what does that look like for us? What is what's the amount that we're gonna need, all that kind of stuff. So now for an older guy, a little bit more established family, what are some words of wisdom that you can give him?
So the first thing I have to admit, there's one correction I need to give you. 40 is a very young guy, and we might be near an age. So 40 is very, very young, and we are very happy to stay. 50 is the new 40, 40 is the new 30, right?
Yeah,
Just say,
yeah.
um, so what I'll share is that it's kind of weird. As you're in the younger years, you think I want to live forever because you're
Yeah.
living it up, you're having a great life. And then as you get into those older years, you start thinking, when I get to 60, gosh, if I live till 90, that's 30 years this money has to last. If I retired at 60, I was like,
Right.
gosh, I hope I don't live that long. It's kind of like the joy of life all of a sudden becomes a burden. And it's you want to have a certain quality of life and make sure you can maintain that quality. Um, but what I would share for you for young guys that are in their 40s or even in their 50s,
Uh-huh.
I too, but I work with families across the board, and I know people in their 70s and 80s that are still golfing and going out and really living it up,
Yeah.
enjoying, walking, going for longer runs than I've done in my lifetime. I get exhausted with the idea of how much they're jogging. Um, but in all seriousness, that I think that the key element for guys or for couples, men or women at our stage is kind of the analogy I like to use is your life right now is like a giant puzzle box, and you've got a lot of different pieces at this stage. As you said, it gets more complicated, right? So there are things that are floating around in the back of your mind. Not only do you want to retire by 60, but if you have kids, college is out there somewhere. I've got a new car coming up at some point in the future. My parents are getting older, and maybe in the next 10 to 20 years, I might need to help them out. So there's lots of little pieces that are floating around, and that uncertainty is really what causes the stress and anxiety to build up. And it just kind of gets worse and worse because the longer we think about a problem without kind of addressing the problem, the more it wears on us. So I think that one of the best things that just like young individuals kind of need to build a foundation. I think that middle age, I don't know, I want to say middle age. Yeah. Young individuals in their 40s and 50s, if they can really start to assess what do I know I not only need for retirement, but what do I need as short-term needs, midterm, and then those long-term needs. And am I on track? That's kind of the key question. If you're not on track, what do I need to do? Because the nice part about being at this stage of life is that we can adapt, we can adjust. If we it's really hard to just say I'm saving for retirement. I'm putting some money into my 401k or into an IRA or something like that. But if you kind of say, if I do this, I should be on track to retire by 62. If I do this, we'll have enough money saved up for that car that we're going to need to buy in the next 7 years. And here's how much I mean, obviously education is different for different families, but it really kind of boils down to eliminate those puzzle pieces, bring them together so that you can actually see, are we on track or do we need to adjust now? Because the longer you wait to adjust, the harder it is to adjust. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so you said it a couple times, on track, right? No, so when you say on track, what I'm thinking is I've got to look out at 65 or at 60, whatever age it is that I decide I'm going to retire, like what number I need to have or what I need to have in place by then, and then I'm working backwards to now to kind of figure out what do you mean when you say get on track?
So if you kind of going back to that foundation, one question I always get is, what's the magic number? How much do I need to have saved by the time I'm 60 to be able to retire comfortably? And what I'd counter that with is take 2 4-year-olds, just as an example, 2 4-year-old guys that are married. Both spouses are making the exact same income, both couples, and one has kids, one doesn't. One's renting, the other one's not. One has an auto loan, the other one doesn't. And uh, so the reason I'm giving you those scenarios is you can start to see that one person's scenario can be completely different than the other person's scenario. If a mortgage is going to be paid off in 10 years or 15 or whatever the time frame is versus rent that's permanent for the rest of your life, then that makes a major difference. So, I mean, it sounds a little bit boring, but the first key element that you want to do is actually assess your net worth and your cash flow. And this is also the honest conversation between spouses. Let's put everything out on the table. Make sure we both know what's going on, because a lot of times what happens is one spouse has a bit more of interest in the financial life than the other. Um, but even in my dynamic, my wife is much smarter than me. I will own that 100%. And without her, our family would completely fall apart.
Mhm.
But I joke around. I'm serious, and I joke around and saying that she is the spender in the family, and I'm the saver. And people are like, whoa, Tony, what are you talking about? Your wife's the spender. And so like, you're looking at the door, you're in trouble. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's really a compliment to her, because what I mean by that is that when it comes to the household budget, I'm the type of person that will go to the grocery store hungry and without a checklist and get tons of stuff I'm not supposed to get. Where she'll go to the grocery store with a checklist, with coupons, and just get the essentials for the family. And that kind of discipline in spending is just as important as making sure the investments are being properly diversified and going into the right tax brackets or tax vehicles and so forth. So I would say that one of the key elements for individuals at our stage is both people getting on the same game plan, because from a cash flow standpoint, if you can take a look at your cash flow and say, okay, this is what we need to live off of right now. And if you have kids, I mean, some families have one kid, some families have 10 kids. I'm in North Carolina. I learned pretty quickly that it doesn't stop at two. You could simply go beyond. So, but at some point when the kids move out of the house, the food budget goes down and things of that nature. So, if you can kind of get the assessment of, okay, what do we need to maintain this standard of living right now? And if a part of that budget is this auto loan that's going to be paid off, or this mortgage that's going to be paid off, then you really get a sense of, okay, what do we need to live off of? And at that point, you can start saying, okay, multiply that times the number of years we think we're going to live in our retirement years. And it gets a bit more complicated because some things people overlook are things like Social Security, right? At some point, some people say it's not going to exist. I don't think it's going to be there for me in my 40s. But the reality is, if Social Security ceases to exist, then buy some boards, lock up the doors, and just hope that zombies don't start ruling, because it's going to get pretty ugly pretty quick.
Yeah.
But I think the simple answer is that don't look at a set number. I know there's kind of general calculators out there. I would say look at your scenario and what your standard of living is, because yours is very different than your neighbors and your friends. And if you can get a sense of your budget right now and you can save, it just makes it so much easier to actually find out, am I on track? And to know, what am I going to need to generate when I do transition into retirement? If I want to. So what is that? The scariest part for retirees is, okay, what am I going to do the first month that the paycheck stops? Where's the money going to be coming from? How's it going to be generated for me? And the first thing you need to know is, how much do I actually need?
Okay. All right. So you don't think Social Security is going away?
So they say basically by the year around 2035 that they'll only be able to cover about 80% of it. So the gist of it is that it's probably going to change. When Social Security was first introduced, the average life expectancy was only about 5 years. People they get it for 5 years and then they passed away. And then, as we've seen over the years, people are living a lot longer. So and we're not having as many babies as we were back then. So basically, we're paying for our parents' Social Security. It's kind of how the system works. So I don't think it's going to go away, but right now, the earliest you can take Social Security is 62. The latest you can take it is 70. they could very easily say at some point, we'll make it 65 to 75, or there's things that they could do to tweak to help keep it solvent for a much longer period of time.
Okay.
It's just if there's one thing government's really good at doing, it's kicking the can down the road, and nobody wants to be the person that says, I'm going to take away your benefit.
Right.
So I think for people in their 40s, if we're young, it's possible that we're probably going to get a reduced benefit from what we're seeing on our statements, but we're still probably going to get something.
Ooh, no.
I
So
know, I'm
that
sorry. I got to keep it honest, right?
right, yeah, no, I appreciate that. So that being the case, then, what are some vehicles or some things that we can do to, I guess, mitigate those potential losses? Like, what should we be looking at? What should we be putting money into, or it was just the
Sure.
shoebox in the closet, or
The shoebox is the best place. Absolute no. And the meeting's cut off, and now
right?
disclaimer, you're fired. And by the way, my name is John Smith. Or so yeah, I was kidding.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, it's a bit of a crude joke, but it's a joke I've used since I started planning. If there's one key element I think is really critical for families especially, it's to focus on the F word, flexibility. And yeah, I call it the F word because it sticks just a little bit more. Like, oh, what are you talking about? Flexibility is key. As most parents know, our dynamic is constantly evolving, and we kind of have an idea of where we want things to go, but our kids get involved in different passions. Our jobs take us in different directions. There's just life is constantly evolving. So the more flexibility you can bring into your overall planning mix, the better. So if there's some fundamental to-dos, I would say the first is make sure you got a good sense of your cash flow. What money's coming in, coming out? Are we living within our means? And if you have debt, if you have some high interest credit card debt, or auto loans, whatever it might be, how quickly can we wipe those out? And it's really hard to do. But if you know it's going to end, if you're like, okay, I'm going to really try to knock out this credit card debt, but if we do it at this level in a year, we're free. I don't have to worry about that credit card debt anymore. It's really good to kind of have those short-term goals in mind and realize that whatever change you're making, it's not a permanent type change. But beyond that, once you do start saving for the future, some individuals have access to like a retirement plan at work, like a 401k or things of that nature. One thing that I've noticed a lot of individuals don't know, but I think is really important to know, is whether you do your taxes on your own or you have a tax advisor help you, try to find out what your marginal tax bracket is. And what that means is that the way taxes work is it's not just all of my money gets taxed at one rate. If you take in the standard deduction, a portion of your income doesn't get taxed at all. And then another portion of your income gets taxed at 10%, and then another portion at 12%, and another portion at 22%, and so forth. So if you can kind of get a sense of, okay, how much of my money is being taxed at these different rates, and what's that highest rate? What's that marginal rate that my income is being taxed at? That really can help you with some of your decision making.
Okay.
What I recommend to a lot of individuals is that if you find that you're in the 22% bracket or higher, then if you get, for example, if you have a 401k at work and there's a match, that's free money. You would be amazed at the number of individuals that do not take advantage of that free money. Even if you had to pull it out and be penalized on it, if you put your money into something, you get 100% back. It's worthwhile to do it. So I definitely would recommend doing that. And there's a lot of push on, do I do a Roth 401k or a pre-tax 401k? So what I would say is if you're in those upper brackets, if you're in 22 or 26 or whatever it might be, doing a pre-tax probably is going to be more advantageous for you. But if you're in the lower brackets, if you're just starting off or your income may only be in the 12% bracket, that's a good tax rate to pay. So in that case, it may make more sense to look at the Roth type options. So I'm trying to get into the weeds, which is kind of the reason financial planners exist, to help kind of figure out those weeds. But one vehicle that's often overlooked, which is probably if you listen to the talking heads of the financial world, the Roth IRA is probably one of the best vehicles out there. because a lot of individuals don't realize that the money you put in, the principal that you put into your Roth IRA, you can pull that money out at any time for any reason. So unlike a 401k, where if you put money in the 401, if you need it, you're going to be paying taxes plus penalties. If you're under age 59 and a half, there's different rules, but Roth is a flexible vehicle. You can put money in there. You can use it for college education. You can use it for buying the car. You can use it for retirement. And it's a vehicle for the future. But if you need to get access to it now, you can get access to that principal very quickly and very easily. So, the tax law can be very complicated, but from basic levels, it's get rid of the debt, build up a cash reserve, and find out where your rental tax rate is. Take advantage of that match, and look at the Roth as being the next piece, assuming you qualify.
Got you. Now, so you talked a little bit about 401k, and then there's like, what is it, 503B or 503C or something like that? Is that a similar concept?
So the 401k is like what you would have with a corporate type job. So if you work for corporate America, they also smaller companies have things called simple IRAs or SEP IRAs, but they're all the same thing. They're all doing the same thing where you're putting money in and it's reducing your taxable income. Now,
Gotcha.
if you work for a hospital or a church, nonprofit, what you're more likely to find is a 403b instead of a 401k. They're
Okay,
basically the
403B.
exact same thing. All it is what number it is on the IRS code. Item 401-K, item 403-B.
Okay.
So those plans are basically out there to just kind of serve as a way of incentivizing you to save for your long-term goals. It's important when you put money into those plans. You get the benefit of reducing your taxable income and having the money go tax deferred. But if you want to get access to that money before 59 and a half, there's a few rules there are a few things that break this rule, but in general, you have to pay income taxes at your highest tax bracket plus a 10% penalty. So whenever you put in the 401, say that's my future. That's when I'm turned 60 plus, that I'll start pulling from that account. But prior to that, if you know that there's some big goals that you're going to have, I mean, going back to mistakes I've seen with individuals in their 40s and 50s, is that they save for the future, but there's a lot of things that happen between now and 60 or 65 or whatever the age might be that they know are out there, but they didn't plan for those items. And then all of a sudden they're scrambling, trying to figure out, okay, I've got this nest egg for retirement, but what am I going to do about education? How are we going to pay for this car? How are we going to do these other items that are more that you can't avoid? You still need to potentially need to drive a car, but please plan for the shorter type things, and it leads to higher levels of stress.
Yeah. Okay, all right, that makes sense. So
I feel like I'm being, Mr. Downer right now.
No.
Stress and terror.
No, these are honest answers that we need to know, because it's weird that I think I've seen more financial literacy and people talking about finances since 2020, the pandemic hit. Maybe it's just on my radar more, right? But prior to that, like, it was almost taboo to talk about finances, to talk about, money. And it's like one of those things, talk about religion and politics, and money was like right up there with it. But I think these are conversations that we need to have, especially as fathers, and more importantly, as leaders. Like, if we're the head of the household and we're trying to set our family up for success, these are conversations we need to have, and we need to have honest conversations about them, right? Like, if we are choosing one of those vehicles to put our money into, we need to understand what's going to happen if we need to pull it out early. I had a question on that though. So if I say I need to pull it out early, I don't take and I'm not taking all of it out. I'm taxed on the portion that I take out.
Correct. Just the portion you take out.
Okay. All right.
But I'll add one last piece, because I mean, kind of going back to individuals that are trying to figure life out as the kids are growing up. Just kind of the stage where we're all going through right now. Throughout the only the first book that I wrote, obviously I'm glad it implemented a lot of my cousin's philosophies, but from the financial side, the biggest thing that I kind of offered from that book was I've been a financial planner. You know, my wife, we met in college, and we've known each other that entire time I was a financial planner. And we would have what I call debates. You might call them fights, whatever you want to call it. But the hard part was, while she was the spender, I was the saver. There were some topics that caused difficulty, and things like we want to take a nice vacation. And the question is, how are we going to pay for that vacation? So I think that the monthly living expenses, the utilities, the groceries, they're pretty easy. They're kind of stable. They might vary a little bit. But then it's those little unknowns that they get thrown into the mix. How are we going to pay for the kids' camp? How are we going to pay for this trip we want to take? And for many couples, what I see is that you've got most families, there's two incomes coming in. It's kind of hard to find the single income family these days, but whether it's one or two, it's all going into a checking account. And from that checking account, you're paying for everything, right? So money's going in all sorts of different directions. And the checking account is kind of just going up and down throughout the month. And then all of a sudden that big expense comes, like paying for the family vacation. And either the checking account gets completely drained, or maybe there's debt that gets brought into the mix because we didn't have the money saved up to pay for that vacation. And it just leads to a lot of debate, as I was saying before. So one of the biggest things I would really encourage families across the board to do that really helped us personally and professionally is we created a system where the incomes would go into what I call the committed account for our future.
Okay.
And from that account, we had our mortgage, we had our the essential expenses, life insurance premiums and things like that would come out of that. Any liabilities would come out of that. And then we have two separate checking accounts at a different institution. And when we created the budget that we have, one account was our everyday living bucket, and the other one was our miscellaneous, the vacations, the clothing, the camps, or whatever it might be. And every month we put a little bit into that bucket so that when we said how are we going to pay for this? We already knew what account we were going to use to pay for that. And every month we were systematic, just like we were systematic to save for your retirement. You also want to be able to systematically save for the trips and the things that your family likes to do. And it seems a little cumbersome, but the debates stopped after we created that system. And for the families I've worked with that have implemented it, it's the tension between the two fades, and the only person they ever yelled anymore is the financial advisor. So it's but the more you can systematize in life, and the more flexibility you can offer, the easier life becomes. I guess it's the takeaway I would give.
Yeah. And so with the two accounts, is that so for the main account, are those just kind of auto like depositing money into those accounts?
You got it. So if the two of you create a budget and say, this is how much we're going to spend on the trips for the year, and this is how much we're going to spend on whatever the various expenses are, and then you can say these expenses fall into the everyday, and these fall into those miscellaneous throughout the year, the big ticket items that happen, maybe even the little contingencies over here. And every month, whatever, take that total amount, divided by 12 every month or every bi-week, however you want to do it, you can put money into that account. And the really nice part about that strategy is, let's say that you get invited to a wedding or something happens that it's out of the norm. Well, if you're going to pay for that wedding, that means something else that money has to come from somewhere. So does it come from the vacation budget? Does it come from something else? But you at least know what you can pull from. And if you run out of money in that bucket, then you have to decide, am I going to pull from my future? Am I going to pull from that account that I said is not to be touched except for the essentials like the mortgage and things like that, or saving for my kids' education or my retirement or the new car or whatever it might be. It's amazing how much psychological warfare you can play with yourself. Probably money going to your 401k, money not seen, money not missed. And once it's in there, you kind of forget about it. And the same thought process applies here. In fact, I encourage a lot of families that committed account should be at a different institution than where you have the two checking accounts, because if they're all at the same place, it's really easy just to pull up the app and transfer from A to B. But
Yeah.
if you've got to take
Yeah.
it from one institution to another one, it's a little more, it's psychological.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing I ended up having to do, and we have our accounts similarly set up where we have like our main account at Chase. But initially we had kind of three accounts at Chase, and the cards looked the same. And so I would like be just swiping a card and be the wrong one. And so we now have them at different banks, and so the cards look different, and so it's a lot easier. But I like that. I really like that idea, because one, you are planning for the future. Like you're setting something aside to when something comes up, because there's always something. There's literally always something. Like it never fails. It never fails. Every time I'm like, all right, oh man, we got a little extra here. I'm gonna put that aside for something. The car is like, oh, I'm dying today. Oh, cool, thanks. So there's always something going on. There's always a rainy day on the horizon, and it's really, really, really important to have something set aside. We've been talking a lot about finance. I kind of want to jump back into family a little bit. Is there any last financial thing you want to throw out there? I mean, we obviously can come back to it, but any last financial thing you want to throw out there?
No, I think the last thing I would just share is going back to what I was saying at the very beginning. We're all taking our own individual journeys, but we're also taking the journey together. And the comparison is the thief of joy. So don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You've got your own family to worry about, and there are people out there that do want to help you. And if any progress is good progress. So even taking little basic steps, just making the effort, really can get things rolling. It's the hardest part. Just like my cousin Greg, he was in great shape. He said, he had this philosophy. He said, getting to staying in this shape is not difficult. It's getting to this shape that's the hard part. So you can get the ball rolling. All of a sudden, things get easier and easier and easier. Once you have a cash reserve, once you have the systems in place, the things just it seems to build, and the pieces fall together. But don't hold back. I think is this the biggest thing, and support each other. I mean, it's scary, and if you're a couple starting off, take the journey together.
Okay. All right. All right. So I kind of want to talk, a little bit, about family. You got two kids, and they're getting older. They're not old, but they're getting older. What is that fatherhood journey been like for you? Because I'm not there. I'm not there yet. You're ahead of me, so I'm picking your brain on some stuff I need to maybe be aware of, as I start to approach those teen years. But how's your fatherhood journey been?
Well, it goes back to why I said you better never call yourself old again, because all those dads in the late 40s and 50s might be you giving you a look right now. But
Yeah, yeah,
no, we definitely feel it. I'll say that once you get to like that next decade, you finally like, well, why can I not recover as quickly as I used
yeah.
to?
I'm already there.
And for
I'm already
me,
there.
yeah. Well, just wait until your daughter's getting ready to sign up for driver's ed. That's
Ugh.
when like I said, I've been helping families for 20 years, so I've gotten to see the behind the scenes, which is really it's nice. But even though I've gotten to see it from so many other families, I'm still not mentally prepared for what's coming. And
Yeah.
so um, I would say that yes, from a fatherhood standpoint, I think that if there's one thing I've learned, as we've gotten more ingrained in trying to be there for our kids, I feel like there's the good news about our environment today is there's so many opportunities for our kids, and we want to give them everything, and we want to do everything. Um, but on the same end, there's only so much time we have, and kind of going back to comparing to others, different people focus their times in different areas, and you
Mhm.
just gotta sometimes feel like I'm not doing enough. And I need to do more. And I need to, as dads who want to be there for our kids, who want to financially support the family, who want to, be in great shape, and just all these to-dos. And at the end, we're just exhausted.
Mhm.
And so, and I do find even just like this podcast, it's just having a conversation with other dads and realizing that, hey, we're going through this journey together is it
Yeah.
almost a release, I guess is probably the best way to say it. Like, yeah, it's not, I'm not on this journey alone. And, uh, we're all doing good. We're all thin.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? I hear that a lot is, what you mentioned, that we're trying to do all the things, right? We got this laundry list of things that we want to do and we want to accomplish, but guys are just tired, like trying to accomplish all those things is hard work, not to mention the hard work we already do, right? The things that we want for ourselves. We also want things for our children. We want things for our household. We want things for our wife. And we're kind of piling all those things on top of each other. And it is refreshing, not to see that somebody else is struggling necessarily, but to just know that it's not just you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to struggle, but I notice you're struggling. I'm struggling too. Okay, cool. All right. All right. So it's not just me. It's not just me. Um, yeah.
But
So
I'll,
go ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say, I don't. I saw a study done years back, and there was other studies that have kind of proven or disproven the study, but it really was impactful to me. And working with families for so many years, I've gotten to see a lot of transition. And what this study was a bell curve, and it was an unhappiness curve, and it basically said that you are in the peak of your unhappiness right around age 47. Which are like, that's terrible. I can't believe they did the study, but we're all studying happiness and unhappiness. And the thought process behind that is that at that stage, just going back to what I was saying before, you feel like you're supposed to be at a certain place. You're trying to do everything for your kids. You're trying to take care of your parents. There's just so much going on. But the positive I saw from that study is that just like, young individuals may feel like I can't make that transition into my first home or even getting married or having a family or whatever it might be. As most dads will say, uh, you're never ready to become a parent. You just kind of have to go into it. Right?
Right. Yeah.
And you figure it out as you go, and you find a support group to help keep you going. It's your family, your friends, whoever it might be. But even for guys in their 40s and 50s who feel like they're just, or men and women, who feel like it's just beyond their realm. The nice part is that the second half of that curve was all increased happiness. And at some point, we realized that, hey, the kids are going to be okay. And we have done a great job. And those benchmarks that we thought we had to hit, they weren't quite as critical as we thought they were supposed to be. Even with work, I mean, obviously different people have thoughts with work, but um, you've probably heard the phrase that when you pass away, your family will mourn you, your job will replace you.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a terrible way to say it, but the reality is that we become more confident in ourselves and we become confident in the life that we're living, and then this peace continues to build into those later years of life. So. I hope that gives all the dads listening out there a little more kind of, it's crazy right now, but this is common, this is normal, and it gets a lot easier, a lot better. And if we plan for it, it gets really, really good in those
Yeah.
later years of life.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I can amplify the happiness on the down slope, then I definitely want to do that. I've never seen that study, but I can see that, right? Where things are progressing upwards in terms of unhappiness. Dang, 47, huh? That's gonna be my most unhappy. All
Well,
right, well,
but on the same end, if you're aware of it, then you're probably going to say, you know what, I'm not going to allow this time in my life to be.
yeah,
It's all about mindset, right? It's kind of how am I approaching each day? Am I going to go into it waking up miserable, or am I going to go into it saying, hey, this is going to be a great day. I'm going to have a great conversations. One, I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I love to say I do this every day, but one of the biggest lessons I've been taught is at the end of each day, name a few things that you're grateful for, and just kind of go into each day. And I wish I could do, because you see, when you do these things, just like going to the gym, when you work out, you feel healthy. You know that it's good for your body. When you eat properly, you know it's good for your body. And like, gosh, I wish I could feel like this all the time. And then stress comes in, and you start eating those donuts or whatever it might be.
yeah,
But and this even goes back to the kids' books. If there's one big lesson that's kind of there with all of those kids' books, it's the sooner we can start teaching kids and adults how to be aware of their emotions, and when those negative thoughts, those fear, that anxiety starts to build up, if they can recognize it and do what needs to be done to counter it, the easier life becomes. It seems like there's some people out there that no matter what, they're just happy all the time, and there's other people that just seem to be struggling all the time.
Yeah.
So if we can teach our kids to, I mean, there's always going to be kids that are better than them, or kids that are worse than them, but we can teach our kids to actually say, hey, I'm trying my best, I'm going to do my best, but I'm also going to be happy with where I am and who I am. I think that would be every parent's dream come true. And at least I hope that helped us make sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's gratitude, right? Like I am grateful for where I am, with an understanding that I could continue to move forward. And I'm not where I was. And so that's a great mindset to teach your children. And it's a great mindset to have as an adult, is that there is potential for progress. You're going to give all that you have, and that's enough for today. Let's move on to the next day, right? Without any the worries of tomorrow bleeding into the day, or the sorrows of past bleeding into today. Today is going to be my day. I'm going to do everything I can today. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to be grateful for what happened. And I'm going to go to sleep, wake up, start all over, or try it again, whatever the case may be. Great mindset to have.
But you mentioned earlier that your daughter, like Mean Girls and things of that nature. My daughter is very much into the arts. She's into theater, and she saw Mean Girls, the theatrical version, recently, and just very much into those plays and so forth. But she's very much, that side of her brain is just nonstop, which is why she was there right next to me, especially many years ago. But one thing that she also has a passion for is children with special needs.
Yeah.
And why I bring that up right now is that when you meet or spend time with families that have children with special needs, obviously there's a lot of stress, there's a lot to do, but the joy that those families can experience off of simple things, simple activities, you could just let you know that you don't need to have certain material things, you don't need to have certain stature or whatever it might be. Joy can be found in every stage of life, and in the simplest things, and in just the relationships we have. And it's hard to remember that every day, but it's really what it's all about, man, right?
Yeah.
Family.
Yeah. Absolutely. As you mentioned your daughter's in the theater. My daughters are as well. Well, they're actually both in Shrek the musical. They're rehearsing for it now, and it'll be out they'll be performing in May. And they just finished up Matilda. And they've done some background work on a few TV shows and movies and stuff. And so they're really into the theater world now. My youngest daughter is hardcore though. She has seen Hamilton 27 or 28 times now at this point. Like she can word for word it. And like not only word for word it, but because she's trying to learn it so she could perform it, like she's moving like the characters, and she's trying to work on her accents, and it's so cool to see them like get really involved in something, and like see them get swept away in it, right? Because you can see in them like the excitement and the passion, and it's like, oh, that's so cool. Like I never really wanted to do that, but it's so cool to see you do it, you know?
Yeah, and from one dad of a theater person to another, have you ever tried to sing or act in front of them and just the girl just kind of shake their head a little bit, go, oh, thank you for trying, Dad. It was good effort. Yeah.
Yeah, they are always like, dude, especially with my wife, because she messes with them with it. And they're like, Mommy, please just stop. No, just stop. And then she does like like these little words, slang words that they use now, like all these different things she tries to say it to. And they're like, Mom, it's just, look, you're just not cool. Leave it alone, let it go. But yeah, the
Oh,
acting stuff like that, stop it.
I think there's a rite of passage. Every parent has to try to throw in at least a few of the new words. My son's got bruh all over the place right now, and it's I don't know. I even we tried. I mean, I throw a cowbunga in there every once in a while, or a rad, or what. Yeah. Back in our day, to say, hey, we have words too, but
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, look, what's funny is those will come back, right? Those will come back before you know it. He'll be saying that. He'll be like, whoa, wait a minute. When I said it when you were 12, you went crazy about it. Now you, right? Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. Yeah, see, we're teaching them, even if they don't want to be taught, they're still learning from our generation. This is why our
Exactly.
parents said,
Exactly.
"What is this music you're listening to?" And now we're saying the same thing to our kids, like, "Oh, hey, okay,
Oh,
well, you
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Every time they're listening to something and I don't like it, I'm always like, oh, I don't say anything. You're gonna sound like your dad. Like, don't be like, what are they saying? What are they even talking about? Like, and
yeah,
I
yeah. Can you
feel
repeat
it.
the word back to me?" Yeah.
I feel it, but I'm like, yo, don't succumb to it. Don't fall into it. You're just gonna sound just like get off my lawn. I don't want to be that guy.
But hey, well, once
Man,
again, you just made the point. We learn from our parents. We learn what to do and what not to, and how to make sure we don't. We keep a balance. I guess is probably the best way to say it. So that our kids
yeah,
actually still want to talk to us when they're off to college and all that good stuff.
yeah. And I'm still gonna embarrass them when they're in college. They're gonna come back with the little
You
college
have
friends,
to.
or I'm gonna go
I
visit.
mean,
Just they had to be ready
you know
for
what?
it.
We'll be right there together. Hey, outside. Hey, my daughter was at Fiddler on the Roof recently, and gosh, she said, "Hey, Dad, do not try to do any of those dance. They have this bottle dance that they do,
Uh-huh.
and she said, as soon as my arms go up, she said, Dad, put them down. Put 'em, I don't want to. Don't even try it. It just so I can just see her at college. I like outside. Hey. So,
Yeah. Look,
anyways.
that's we I think we have to, like you said, it's a rites of passage. I think we have to. That's a core memory. Like everybody has a core memory of when a parent embarrassed them, and I'm just gonna make sure that I do my part. Like I don't want to be a dad. I don't want you to miss that. You know?
And every dad who's listening right now is like, absolutely, yeah. If
Yeah.
we don't, we haven't checked that box in the father. So yeah,
Exactly. I've got to tell bad dad jokes here and there, and I know they're corny, but that's cool. Like you need that. You need a corny joke every once in a while, and sometimes more than once in a while.
yeah, and yeah, it gives the kids a sense that hey, if I ever am corny, my dad's worse. So at least I'm not as bad as my dad.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely. All right. So we've talked about a lot of stuff, right? We talked about finances. We talked about fatherhood. And obviously this is a fatherhood podcast. So I would be missing the point if I didn't ask, what does fatherhood mean to you?
So fatherhood, as the years have passed, I realized is more than just being a dad to your kids.
Mhm.
I find that in a weird way, fatherhood is being a it's the character you show not only when your kids are around, but also when they're not around, and when their friends are
Mhm.
around, when the community's around. Everything we do, instead, it's kind of like the butterfly effect, comes back to the environment that our kids grow up in. And
Mhm.
I really look at fatherhood as trying to create an environment and a world where the next generation, my kids, their friends, their generation, just feels a sense of hope, feels a sense of belonging, feels a sense of um, just happiness and value in who they are. And uh, there's always going to be worries. We're never going to be able to eliminate that. There's always going to be difficulties. And as much as we want to try to eliminate those things, but if we can create a world where people are hopeful and believe they can, and believe that they're valued, then fatherhood is really about that. It's being that figure for the next generation and doing it together. It's not just one dad, it's all of us dads, um, trying to serve each other and serve our kids and serve our partners.
I love that. I love that. Being like a pillar of the community, right? Like being the role model and being the example and being the image of what a father is I like that. I like that. All right, so you've been commissioned to write another book, an adult book. The demographics are a little different on this one. Not completely, but a little different.
We're taking
and
those. Okay.
yeah, we've done an amazing job marketing this thing. I think we've got everybody. The pre-orders are in. Million copies sold. More than that, I don't know how many actual copies are sold, but they're all dads. And what do you want that book to be? What is the message that you want them to read?
So, for all the dads out there,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna sound corny, but like I said, we're corny. We're dads. We're supposed to be corny.
Right.
Not just to our kids, but we can be corny to each other too. Um, I think that the thing I want to tell the dads is we can do it. You can do this. You're not alone in this journey. A lot of times the father figure is kind of viewed as the sole individual out there trying to run his own ship. And I think that if there's a book or just like this podcast, bringing these dads together, if there's a way to try to show that, hey, be fencing for each other, it seems like there's a lot of focus on just all sorts of different priorities in the world, and dads we're there, but we're not. We're just kind of like we're there. Like, do your thing, Dad. And the reality is that we're valuable, but we're also people too, and that the way we feel is not to be overlooked. And there's a lot of people that we're all on this journey together, and we can achieve it. Just don't think that I don't want to say don't get down because you can't control that, but realize if you're down, there's others out there to support you, and then there's hope. Probably the best way. No, sir.
I like that. I like that. All right. So that one went over. That was great. We're gonna have you write another book. Children's book this time. The marketing was perfect. We got everybody we wanted. Pre-orders are in, but it's only 2 people. It's exactly who we're trying to reach. And those are your children. What do you want that book to be?
That one I can get all emotional on. It's getting too deep into it. But I think that a little sidebar on me, which kind of helps explain for all those that are out there experiencing. I've talked a lot about anxiety and stress and things like that. In high school, among my peers, I was voted as the most worrisome person in our school. So I don't know why that was allowed back in those days, but I use it as a badge of honor now because for what I do, being a planner, if you're worried about it, chances are I was worried about it too. And going back to your question on the book for my kids is, to worry to prepare has its purpose. It's important to prepare. It's important to work towards your goals and work towards your dreams, and to not give up, and to not allow the outside world to influence you. But if there's something I could try to give to my kids, it would be to not allow the worry of life to diminish who they think they are and who and what they think they can do. I would want them to feel that empowered to, even if people say it's weird. It's odd. And you mentioned your girls being in the arts. Some people think that certain things that kids are in the arts are kind of weird or odd. That's okay. There's plenty of weird things weird individuals that turned out to be incredible people.
Right.
And weird is not an insult. It can very much be a compliment. And I think that if my kids can say that Yes, my uniqueness is a great thing, and my dreams are valuable. And no matter which direction they go, I'm going to be a good influence on the world. And I'm not going to give up just because somebody says that's weird or that's bad or you don't know what you're doing.
Okay. I like it. I like it, man.
Man, you made me go deep right at the very end. Thank you for
Listen,
that. That's nice.
yeah, because now you'll leave here and you'll hug them a little tighter, kiss them on the forehead if they're still allowing that, and just lock into dad mode. So perfect.
I will say that is the hardest thing to let go of, by the way. You're talking about my kids being a little bit older. When your daughter starts to say, when you go from daddy to dad,
it happened already, man. Oh,
yeah. So I mean,
oh.
I mean, I just see it right there. It's for all the dads out there, just be ready. That's kind of, but they still know that you love it, and every once in a while they'll give you a daddy or they'll give you a hug or but yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to go there. I'm gonna get you all sad at the very end of our meeting. Yeah,
no,
you're doing good. You're doing good for dad.
It happened a few months ago, so it's still pretty fresh. It's still pretty fresh.
Sorry.
Like when she first did it, like I didn't even know she was talking to me. Like I just assumed it was another kid talking, right? Like it was her voice, but I was like, that can't be her. And she's like, Dad. And by the third time, I was like, that's for sure her voice. And I was Dad, and that was it.
But you're an awesome
slip.
dad, so just own it, right? I'm the awesome dad, right? So,
Yep. All right. If guys are wanting to reach out to you, wanting to get the books and wanting to kind of maybe say, hey, great episode, like really appreciate you sharing that information, what's the best way for them to do that?
So all my information is on owningthedash.com, OWNING the DASH.com. And I also share that on there, there's a section called for educators, but it's also for parents too. And there's a lot of free games and just activities that parents can do with kids, all stuff you can download and print off. That are fun activities you can do with your kids that give financial lessons, but also just are ways to bring the family together. So there is a password to get into that stuff, but I'll share it with your listeners right now. It's owning my dash exclamation point.
Okay.
And the O, the M, and the D are all like capitalized.
Capper.
But but there's a contact section in there as well. So if anybody wants to send an email, those emails can go directly to me, and I'm happy to touch base. Love to discuss finance or other anything I can do to inspire dads out there. I'm not doing it as well as you are, but I'm trying, right?
No,
So,
you're doing great. You're doing great. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing in the exact way that you're supposed to, right? So
maybe I should have you write the book. I mean, look what you just said right there. I mean, seriously, I want a recording of this so I can get that down for the end of the book. You're doing it. I mean, I felt like a child just then. That was awesome.
No, it's something that I tell guys all the time is like you are unique, like, and not UN, but YOU, because there's just one of you. You are that child's father. You are those children's father. Like they were picked to be with you. You were picked to be with them. And so exactly what you're doing right now was a part of the plan all along. All right. So you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, exactly when you're supposed to do it. If you want to do more, do more. That's your choice, but you're exactly where you need to be.
Awesome. Thanks. You definitely picked the right path for yourself. I'll tell you that right now. That was keep it going. Man. Don't quit. Keep the dream alive, right?
Like I told you, it's something I'm passionate about. I love having these conversations, and I love being in this space of fatherhood and brotherhood and manhood. It's exactly, like I said, it's exactly what I'm supposed to be, and I'm just doing what I feel like I'm supposed to do.
I'm excited I got to be a little part of the journey, so thank you for that.
Yeah, and now look, you know what's funny about this, and I was just thinking this is I talked to Trevor Boehm the other day, and he was a guest on the podcast, and so now he's got a couple of books I gotta read, and now I've got to read your, like one thing about this podcasting thing is now, man, I'm gonna have to read 50 books by the end of the year. Like it's getting out of control. Like everybody's got a book now that I have to read. Not like I'm reading it because somebody's on the podcast. Like these are books that I really want to read. Like I really need to know this information. So, well, here it goes.
I'm gonna make sure I get a copy out to you as soon as we wrap up today. So I'll definitely get one to you.
Thank you.
If you don't like it, it's a good paperweight. Well, we all want one or the other. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Again, let me say this now. I appreciate you taking the time. I understand how important time is for all of us, but especially us as fathers. And so anytime a guy takes some time out of his day to share with us, to share with the listeners, to share with me, I'm super, super appreciative of it. And I don't want that to get lost. Like I'm not saying that for the podcast. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Because I know how important time is and how important your energy is, and you being able to give that energy to us is really, really appreciated. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Feelings mutual. Thank you for the time today. It spent a lot to me. So
awesome.
I love it.
Awesome.
I'm more as charged as I was when we started the podcast. So doing something right, I tell you.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that I could pass some energy to you, and I look forward to hearing from you and talking to you and interacting with you more as our lives continue to move forward. Thank you again.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, fellas, that is the podcast. I will get back to you guys soon. See you later. You just tuned into another episode of the Forfeit Fatherhood podcast. Thank you once again for listening. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow me at You Can Call Me Coach on Instagram. Also follow the podcast at Forfeit Fatherhood, the number 4 and the letter U on You Can Call Me Coach. Go ahead and flip over to the next episode, man. I know you love this one, so you'll probably love the next one. Excited for you guys to hear it.